We're going to look at another topic, which is personality development in psychology. Personality is a common word that everybody used. People regard people as somebody that is supernatural or superhuman. And that is why people always say, this person has a lot of personality. This person has a lot of personality. But that is not what it meant in psychology. We always see people and say, this man can command respect. This one is giant. This one is huge. This one is small. This one is tiny. But he's his own personality. And that is what it meant by personality in psychology. When we said personality in psychology, we mean a common characteristics or a unique feature or a distinguishing feature that differentiates Mr. A from Mr. B. Because psychologists believe that no matter how close an individual is, even if they are twins, there must be something that differentiates them. They must have something that is unique, that is distinct, that differentiates them. And that is why in psychology, every individual, no matter how small such an individual is, has its own unique way of behavior. And that is his own personality. He has his own unique way of doing things, and that is his own personality. And that means that every individual has his own personality. How do people know that an individual has a personality? By the way an individual behaves. Your behavior possesses who you are, or displays who you are, tells the kind of person you are. And that is your own personality. The distinguishing feature that differentiates you from Mr. A and Mr. B is your own personality. And that is why in Hausa there is Hassana and Husseina. People believe that, they are twins. They must have everything in common. It is not like that in psychology. Every individual has its own different way of thinking, have its own different way of thought, have its own different way of feelings, have its own different way of belief. So that is their unique characteristics and distinguishing feature that differentiate them. Taya and Kehinde have their own different personality. So that distinguishing feature, that unique characteristics, that distinct characteristics is what differentiates an individual from one another, and that is what is referred to as personality. Psychologists were able to classify two types or two forms of personality. That is unique characteristics and the common characteristics. What I mean by unique characteristics, the unique characteristics are those things that are inherent, those things that are inbuilt, those things that are cognitive, things that an individual are born with, that no matter the situations and circumstances that is surrounding such an individual, he does not change. It doesn't change an individual. They are unique. Things like intelligence, things like musical talents, they are inherent and inborn in an individual. That does not change an individual, no matter the situations. That is why they are unique. And that is why people get to know such an individual with that unique characteristics or with that unique feature. No matter what the society does, it does not change him. They are unique and they are inherent, they are inborn, they are inbuilt, they are cognitive. It's always remain in an individual. And we have the common characteristics. The common characteristics are those things that we learn from the environment where we live. It determines who we are. It changes our own personality. For example, somebody might be hot-tempered in a particular place, but when he gets himself to another different environment, he becomes cool, easy, and calm, easygoing. That's a common characteristic that drastically or easily changes him. People believe that people changes. Circumstances and situations makes an individual to change their own personality. These are common characteristics. So also, I said psychologists were able to give us four main forms or types of personality. We have the trait approach, we have the psychoanalytic approach, we have the social learning approach, and we have the phenomenological or humanistic approach. These are the approaches to personality or forms of personality, as it is always been said. Let's begin to look at the first one, which is the trait approach. We said the trait approach to personality is like biological in nature. The approach itself was developed by Kretschmer and Sheldon in 1954 and 1925. What did they do? Kretschmer and Sheldon classified human personality into three categories. The short and plumpy individuals they called the endomorphs. These categories of people are said to be social, are said to be relaxed, and are also said to be hot-tempered. When we take example like dwarfs, they are short, they are plumpy, they are social, They are relaxed and they become hot-tempered sometimes. How do they become such hot tempers? When you look down on them, they flared up. They are social because they believe that because of their stature, anywhere they go, if they don't make noise, people will not recognize their presence. And that is why they feel comfortable and relaxed with everybody. These categories of people, they are called endomorphs. Another category of people that is classified by Kretschmer and Sheldon was the tall and thin individuals, which they called the ectomorphs. The ectomorphs are said to be they are said to be relaxed, they are said to be quiet, they are said to be shy, and they are said to be reserved, they are said to be fond of solitude. Another category of people that is classified by Kretschmer and Sheldon under the threat approach is the heavy muscular individuals, which are the mesomorphs. The mesomorphs, like the endomorphs, are said to be social, are said to be relaxed, are said to engage themselves into physical activities, and are also said to do the work that attracts the attention of people. These categories of people are said to be heavy and muscular. They are social because anywhere they go, they believe that they command respect, because people might definitely fear them because of their stature. They are relaxed because they want to carry everybody along, thinking that okay, they command respect, so there is no need for them to be hot like the endomorphs. Abi? They engage themselves into physical activities because they want to reduce their weights, and they also want the work or the job that attracts the attention of people, like sales promoters, marketing managers, and teachers, etc., etc. These are the classification of threat approach according to Kretschmer and Sheldon. Another approach to personality that was also given, which is a psychoanalytic approach, like the threat approach, which is biological in nature. The psychoanalytic approach was propounded by a German scholar, Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud believed that every individual behaves the way he or she behaves as a result of something. And therefore, that something are unconsciously and unknowingly guided within an individual, an instinct that is kept in an individual that makes him to behave the way he is behaving, which in most cases, they are unconscious and they are unknowing to such an individual. And that is why, in trying to bring out those instincts that makes an individual to behave the way he or she is behaving, he classified human personality or sources of personality into three: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id, in the first place, is the first source of personality under the psychoanalytic approach, which is they are related to biological instincts that are inherent, and we said are the primary source of individual's personality that every child or individual is born with, which is the first source of personality. We said it operates on primary pleasure principles that are irrational and illogical because it does not measure the pros and consequences of every individual's action. And that is why most of its behavior are primitive, are primary, are illogical and irrational and not acceptable in the society because it has not undergone the process of socialization. So in this case, every individual has an id, which is a first source of personality. From there, when an individual is behaving or operating on the primary pleasure principles that are primitive, instantly the second source of personality develops, which is the ego. The ego is regarded as the secondary process of personality. It operates on the secondary process, which is rational, logical. And sometimes it is regarded as the executive arm of personality because it decides whether an action that an individual is about to carry is right or wrong, unlike the id that does not decide. The ego provides an individual with the appropriate environmental condition of executing the acts, unlike the id that does not provide the individual with the appropriate environmental condition of executing his action. And that is why most of its actions are primitive, are primary, are illogical and irrational. The ego's personality is rational, logical, and pure. because it provides an individual with the appropriate environmental condition of executing the act. When an individual is about to execute an act at that stage, instantly, because these three sources of personality go hand in hand, instantly, because it's molding an individual to become who he is, instantly, the last source of personality develops, which is the superego. The superego is the internalization and presentation of societal norms and values as taught to the child by his parent and others. It then means that if an individual superego is at work, particularly children's superego, if it is at work, a child does not need anybody to tell him that the action he does is right or wrong. His superego might have told him, what you do is not acceptable here in this society. So he instantly adjusts to become an acceptable member of the society. He adjusts his behavior so that he can be acceptable. And that is why, how does he adjust in his behavior? He internalized the norms and values of the society and present to the society as given to him, based on the acceptable ordinances of the society. And that is why the superego works to make sure that an individual becomes a perfect individual in the society. When we said the id itself, which is the first source of personality, it seeks only pleasure. The ego tests reality, and the superego strives for perfection. For an individual to become a perfect individual that is operating in a normal society, that is acceptable based on the norms and values of the society, the superego of such an individual must be at work. And that is why once it works on an individual, it presents an individual as a perfect individual that is supposed to operate in a normal society. And that is to say that the behavior of such an individual is perfect, is normal, and is acceptable in the society. We said in the beginning, these two sources of personality, forms of personality, which is the trait and the psychoanalytic, they are inherent and biological in nature. And that was why, at the end of the day, when Sigmund Freud finishes his analysis of the sources of personality, he found out that these three sources of personality do not agree to themselves. They are always at loggerheads. They are always in disagreements. Because when the id seeks pleasure, the ego tests reality, and the superego strives for perfection, they will never agree. But at the end of the day, in order to present an integrated behavior, a normal behavior in a normal human being in a normal society, whether they like it or not, they must agree to produce an integrated behavior. But we found out that because they are inherent, they are biological in nature, these forms of personality development were debunked by recent scholars of psychology. And that was how the social learning process came into existence. It debunked the perception of the traits and the psychoanalytic approach, believing that they places so much emphasis on the biological nature of human being as the determinant factor of his own personality or behavior, forgetting that an individual is the product of the society where he lives. What is social? Network of relationship that an individual does with another person in the society. What is relationship? Interaction, companionship, friendship that we do with another human being in the society. Social learning theory said is the determinant factor of individuals' behavior. That is why it is very easy to identify a person from the homes he comes from. Whose son is this? Is the son of Abiola. No wonder he's a philanthropist. Whose son is this? Is the son of so person. No wonder he's a philanthropist like this. Whose son is this? Is the son of Anini. No wonder he's also one of the armed robbers. Social learning theories believe in that. Individuals' interaction, the people he associates with in the society, determines who he is. We interact with different kinds of people. We come from different family background. So our behavior, our personality is determined by the kind of family we come from. And the society we associate ourselves with as a result of the process of our upbringing determines who we are. And that is what the social learning theory is emphasizing. People personality is determined by situational factors and environmental variables. What are the situations? Situations may make an individual to change his own personality for a moment, But after some time, he comes back to his normal behavior. And that is why the social learning theory is given more prominence to situational factors and environmental variables as the determinant factor of human personality. What are the situational factors? I said situations are things that occurred at a moment, and after sometimes it goes back. An individual may be hot-tempered, but situation may make him to be cool. An individual may be cool. Situations may make him to be hot-tempered. And that is what the social learning theory is emphasizing. We should determine the situation that makes an individual behave the way he or she behaves, and determine the factors that makes him to behave that way. What are environmental factors? An individual, psychologists believe that people that comes from a cold environment are more accommodating than people that comes from hot environments. A typical example, when you are walking on the streets with horn, if the sun is too hot, the moment somebody talks to you, you will become aggressive. And if you come from a cold environment, you are comfortable, you like people around you. People believe that maybe to keep you warm or to keep you company, an individual behave the way he is behaving as a result of this factor. An individual comes from such family is the determinant factor of his own personality. An individual is who he is the determinant factor of the kinds of people he associates himself with. And that is why sometimes, even if you are not a smoker, by virtue of associating yourself with smokers, the society, as far as it is concerned, you are also a smoker. If you are not an armed robber, I've always said it in the class, I've seen a situation whereby an innocent person was killed because his friends were armed robbers. They went to rob in the night and they were chased away by the police. When they traced them to their house, they met that innocent individual. He didn't know what they were doing. It was when the police come to the house to arrest them, they now found him alone in the house, and that was how they caught him. When they got him and took him to the... At the end of the day, they passed a firing squad judgment on him. And at the point of that, he said, just like what Jesus Christ said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. He was innocently killed because his friends were armed robbers. The kind of people we associate ourselves determine who we are as far as the society is concerned. And that is what the social learning theory is emphasizing. If you want to assess individual personality, you have to dig out the root, the family where he comes from. You have to dig out the kind of people he associates himself with. You have to dig out the environment where he comes from. And that is why they determined the situational factors and environmental variables. So, another form of theory of personality development is the phenomenological or humanistic approach. Phenomenological approach, unlike the social learning approach that gives so many prominence on the individual and the society or the environment where he comes from, under the phenomenological approach, it gives so much prominence on the individual as an ego, as the determinant factor of his own behavior. It believes that an individual can determine who he is, what he can do, whom he wants himself to be, and what he cannot be able to do. What I want, what I can do, what I don't want, and what I want myself to be in the future. So an individual is that ego that determines for himself. If, for example, if the whole society sees me as the most ugliest person in the society, as far as I'm concerned, I'm seeing myself as the beauty pageant. I should be behaving like a beauty pageant, learning how to do a catwalk, speaking like a beauty pageant, and that is my own phenomenology. No Jupiter can change my own determination, my own thinking, as far as I am concerned. And that is how I developed my own personality. What you think you are, what you think you can do, what you think you cannot be able to do, what you think you want to be in future is the determinant factor of your own personality. And that is what phenomenology is. It is also called humanistic because it involves human being. It is human being that can think and want themselves to be shaped and molded and want themselves to be like this, and not animals. Animals can only perceive, but they cannot interpret. Can only perceive, but cannot understand. But human beings perceive, understand, and interpret, and determine who they want to be. That is their own phenomenology. So therefore, on that phenomenological approach, human being as an individual ego is the determinant factor of his own behavior or of his own personality. And that is all about personality development. What you need to understand here is that every individual, no matter how small such an individual is in psychology, as far as psychology is concerned, has his own personality, because he has his own distinct feature, distinguishing characteristics or behavior that differentiate him from one another. And also, you need to understand the various forms of or approaches to personality, like the traits approach, the psychoanalytic approach, the social learning approach, and the phenomenological stroke humanistic approach. The traits approach and the biological approach are biological in nature and are inherent, that every individual is born with. No matter the situations and circumstances, they believe that individual does not change, and that is how they are. Whereas social learning approach and the phenomenological approach came up recently to debunk the perception of the traits and the psychoanalytic approach, because they believe that society determines who an individual is. According to social learning approach, we learn so many things from the society where we are. We learn so many things from the people we associate ourselves with. We learn so many things from the environment where we come from. And that is what the social learning theory is emphasizing. Whereas the phenomenological says, no, an individual single ego is the determinant factor of his own behavior or personality. And that is why these four approaches to personality differs in their own perspectives and approaches to humanity as far as human personality development is concerned.